Fellas, I'm not trying to like peer pressure you into doing anything, especially something you don't want to do. Some of you guys are hell-bent on using auto rifles inside of Destiny. Others are dedicated pulse rifle users. And then like, I don't know, the other 98% of you only use a hand cannon. Now, I'm not saying that hand cannons need a nerf, but they are getting a nerf, or at least 120 round per minute hand cannons are getting a nerf, which means there is one weapon that I want you to try if you have not tried it. And fellas, that is DMT, Dead Man's Tail. We reviewed this weapon not once, but twice, but this weapon really opens up to us when you finally obtain that exotic catalyst. You see, this weapon turns from a normal scout rifle into a yeehaw scout, and think of this as like an extended version of Last Word. Actually, probably even has better hit registration than even Last Word had when it was first released. I know that sounds crazy. Last Word was pretty busted, especially on mouse and keyboard, but DMT feels that damn good. But for the longest time, my complaint when using DMT, or not really a complaint, it was just a counter, one of which we all have to acknowledge. Hell, when you think about it, what is the primary counter to all primaries inside of D2 in this current sandbox? 120 round per minute hand cannons. And depending on how big of a nerf 120s actually get, which I think is going to be somewhere around sub 40 meters without rangefinder, and then maybe like 41 meters with rangefinder, maybe 42. But currently, 47, 48 meters for a rangefinder 120 is not a difficult thing to do, which means your hand cannon is a scout rifle, and even better, because it handles better. You can play very peak oriented with your 120s, Igneous Hammer, True Prophecy, Bottom Dollar, you name it, fellas. Those 120s are nasty. However, I think DMT is going to become one of the best primaries in the game, which is why I urge you, fellas, because I've got some comments on the previous videos. People are like, oh, that's a scout rifle? I'm good, man. I don't even want to try it. Please try DMT. Just once, man. Now, God roll wise, I jumped around a bunch here, and I even landed a killing win roll. After playing with this more and more, I gotta say, guys, Vorpal is the most disgusting perk on this scout rifle. Like, don't get me wrong, I love all these other traits that can help the weapon itself and its consistency, but Vorpal is that perk. You just back up when you hear a super get popped and get ready to hip fire shred it, because it can, and it will. Now, the exotic catalyst increases that hip fire rate, essentially turning this 120 round per minute scout rifle to a 150 round per minute scout. Firing from the hip also increases its hip fire accuracy, or at least negates the hip fire accuracy penalties. Matter of fact, one of the most beautiful things about Dead Man's Tail is that you don't have any mobility drawbacks. You see, other scout rifles, not only do they have those hip fire accuracy penalties, as well as bloom, just outright bloom, they also have the issue that the moment you move, that reticle flares out. This is actually not just on scout rifles, but it's on autos and other weapons. But the only weapons it's not on is hand cannons. And Bungie wonders why we're in the hand cannon meta. And it's because hand cannons is not negatively impacted based on your mobility, based on you actually moving in the game. In a game like Destiny 2, where we are moving a bunch, unless you're using aimbot, that's part of the skill ceiling, right? Not only do you have to aim pretty well, you have to move pretty well. And unfortunately, many other weapon types do come with some inaccuracies when moving, when sprinting, when coming out of your sprint, when sliding around corners. It's annoying. Scout rifles wouldn't necessarily be meta, but they would have a much better fighting chance if the weapon type didn't require you to be a laning Larry. Damn you, Larry! But DMT avoids that, and it's actually due to the exotic catalyst. Now, a couple of things we actually paired here, and I've been seeing some other people doing this for a while, and we gave it a go, and it's actually kind of nice. And that's actually Lion Rampants. That's right, these exotic Titan leg armor pieces. Comes with the exotic perk, Jump Jets, provides additional aerial maneuverability, and enables accurate hip fire while you're in the air during a lift. Some people have been asking, does this double stack with Dead Man Tail? Well, it definitely doesn't hurt. For the most part, think of this as like allowing Dead Man to have Icarus. And I've tried DMT on Warlock, and it works pretty well on Warlock too. But for the most part, I have to pop a grenade, consume it on Top Tree Dawnblade in order to really get that accuracy maxed out, especially from the hip. Lion Rampant just became S tier purely off of just its combination here with DMT and its aerial gameplay. This hip fire accuracy is actually really, really good. It peppers people. So yeah, I am landing some body shots, but it really doesn't matter. I'm still getting the kill. At 81 damage per crit, 48 damage per body, Dead Man's Tail as a 150 can easily 2 crit 1 body guardians at 0.8 seconds. And Lion Rampant here just allows for that overall consistency to stay steady while in the air. Now, even though this weapon doesn't have visible bloom, I will say that if you overfire, which I do have a tendency to do, man, I gotta catch myself every single time. If you overfire, the weapon does bloom slightly. So pacing your shots is very rewarding here, as it's overall even more consistent, especially with you in the air, and with each precision precision hit, you'll be stacking on stacks of cranial spike, which does cap out at ×5 for an overall 20% increase there in damage. Yes, at ×5, you can 2-crit Guardians in approximately 0.4 seconds. We're gonna be making a couple videos, guys, on weapons to essentially lock down for the season, weapons that are really gonna be standout. But before we even got into that list, I think DMT just deserved a video all on its own. It's that good. And unless Bungie rolls up in here over the next few weeks in the upcoming TWABs and just throws out some of the nastiest buffs handed out to some of our less popular weapons, unless that happens, DMT will probably become one of the best weapons next season. About the only thing that can truly counter it is if we see a big buff to pulse rifles. Like if we see a big buff to pulses, maybe like a rapid fire pulse rifle buff, like an overall damage buff. I'm not just talking about some little like range buff or consistency buff. I'm talking about full-blown damage buff, knocking TTK values down for our pulse rifles to truly start dominating in that mid-range. But I don't know how much lower you can start dropping TTKs for pulses. High impacts, aggressives, they all sit around 0.67, 0.73. Even rapid fire sit around 0.8. About the only archetype of pulse rifle that Bungie could truly drop TTK-wise will be lightweights and adapters, and especially adapters. Third axiom could be meta. But again, this is pure speculation based on what Bungie may be doing in the buffs. But if not much is done there, and Bungie is expecting the nerfs that's being handed out to hand cannons to be enough to shake up the meta, well then, DMT is situated to click heads all next season. Now, I've had some people comment and state that the hipfire accuracy is nowhere near as good on controller as it is on mouse and keyboard. Matter of fact, a lot of people have drawn the same conclusion about Dead Man's Tale as they did with Last Word when it first launched. Because originally, Last Word kind of sucked on controller when it first launched. Like I remember I was still on console, Last Word came out, and I was pretty pissed. I was like, yo, this sucks. And Last Word looked so damn good on mouse and keyboard that I actually ended up quitting console and going to PC just so that I can play with Last Word and Thorn and all those other hand cannons. Now, here recently, funny enough, Last Word actually feels better on controller than it does on mouse and keyboard. Bungie's been trying to like balance these two things, these inputs, for a very, very long time, which means DMT could potentially be on the radar for a buff for controller users. Now, I don't think they're gonna nerf it for mouse and keyboard users, despite some people asking for it to be nerfed. Kind of blows my mind. Don't get me wrong, DMT is really good, but I don't think it needs to be nerfed, man. I mean, come on. It's literally the only scout rifle that can actually hang. So hopefully that doesn't happen. However, if you are a controller user on console, let me know how DMT feels for you. Is this scout rifle popping off? Does it feel consistent enough? Are you able to utilize it the same way we're able to over here on PC? And I've actually plugged in my controller a few times here on PC, and DMT still feels very, very good. Very sticky. Which makes me wonder, is there some things here tied to frames? I don't know. Either way it goes, guys. For the time being, get on the Titan, throw some Dead Man's Tale on, whatever your best role may be, pair with Lion Rampants, max out those stats. That's right. You can get a nice, sexy 100 resilience, 100 recovery right there. Oh, I think this might be my best stat distribution I've ever had. Baraka with some stasis, some cold snap grenades, some whisper of hedrons, and start clicking heads. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.